What's up mga kuya? Welcome back to the channel. So this is the Samsung Galaxy S21 and it's a great smartphone as you would expect from a high-end flagship from Samsung. And I'm actually gonna apologize right now. So as you can see, I haven't removed the stickers on this since I'm not allowed to remove them since Samsung just lent this to me. So yeah, and I also apologize that you're gonna see this in some of my B-rolls. So this is the latest and greatest from Samsung and these are my thoughts on it. So this is the regular S21 and actually the least expensive of Samsung's S21 lineup with 8 gigs of memory and 128 gigs of storage. So this costs $800 US, and for the price, I'm actually not mad at it. It's actually a fair price. Like, I can't believe I'm actually saying that for a smartphone that costs $800 US or around 40,000 Philippine pesos. I'll explain why this is actually a fair price for a smartphone. So let's start off with the 5 pillars of a great smartphone. So that's great build quality, display, camera, performance, and battery. So the regular S21 checks all those boxes for the most part. So build quality, it's an A+. So you have an aluminum frame, Corning Gorilla Glass Victus at the front, and really the only thing about the build that Samsung made the compromise on is the back. So this is actually plastic. So if you didn't know that, yeah, the regular S21 has a plastic back. For still $800, I think Samsung could have put a glass back here. So and for the few days that I was actually able to use this, it actually didn't accumulate any scratches at all. So this plastic back has a matte finish, which is very nice. I really love that about the design. So I would say durability wise, this isn't really an issue, and the design, I like it. It's actually fairly minimalistic for the most part. So it's actually weird to say that I like the design of the camera bump on this. So it's a seamless design overall, especially with this phantom gray color option that I have. And of course, not to forget that the S21 is also IP68 dust and water resistant. Although one thing I wish that companies would do, and not just Samsung, is fill out the space of the camera bump and make the phone thicker to maybe accommodate a bigger battery and maybe bring back the headphone jack. I'm not sure, but yeah, overall I like the design of the S21 except for the side. So again, this has an aluminum frame and it's shiny, glossy, a real fingerprint magnet. Like, yeah, they made the back almost not a fingerprint magnet with this matte finish, but the sides, just make it matte please. Yeah, and since this is the regular S21, this actually has a smaller and more compact 6.2-inch AMOLED display. So it's actually ironic that 6.2 inches by today's standard is actually compact in a world where smartphones are getting bigger and bigger. Hopefully not to the point that it would reach 7 inches. So this is the regular S21 and this is my Xiaomi Redmi Note 10 Pro with a 6.67-inch display. So it just dwarfs it. So for people with smaller hands, this is actually a better option. Like, it's more manageable with one hand. So yeah, and the display on this doesn't need any introductions. It's a gorgeous 6.2-inch 1080p AMOLED display with a 120Hz refresh rate, and it's a Samsung AMOLED panel, so it's gorgeous. It's perfectly viewable outdoors with a 1300 nit peak brightness, and combined with that 120Hz refresh rate, it's just an overall fluid experience. And to those of you who are gonna comment on the display like it should be 1440p instead of 1080p on a high-end flagship, like for me 1080p should be like the max resolution in any smartphone, especially with a screen this size. So you'll get better performance since it won't stress out the GPU as much compared to a 1440p display, and you'll get better battery life since it's again a lower 1080p resolution, and again 1080p on a 6.2-inch display is plenty sharp. Like, you won't realize it. Like, if I handed this to you and told you that this has a Quad HD display, then you would probably most likely believe me without questioning it. So yeah, and moving on to the camera. So the regular S21 has a 12 megapixel main shooter, 64 megapixel telephoto, and 12 megapixel ultra wide, and it's right up there. The pictures that it takes are just stunning. Like, lots of detail, great dynamic range, and I love that there's pretty much no distortion at the corners with the ultra wide shots. And for the 64 megapixel telephoto lens, you can zoom up to 30 times, which is just obviously digital zoom. And for me, like, the sweet spot when zooming in with this is 4x, which retains a lot of detail. And of course, for videos, you can record up to 8K. Like, I mean, let's be honest, who's gonna buy a smartphone to specifically record in 8K? Like, But of course, as you would expect, video quality on this is great, especially with OIS. And with the 10 megapixel front-facing sensor, you can take some pretty sharp and detailed selfies with still great dynamic range. Plus, you can record up to 4K with this, so if you want those ultra high definition vlogs, then you can do that. So for me, of course, the S21 gets an A+ for the cameras. So moving on to performance, so since this is the international version of the S21, this has the Exynos 2100 instead of the Snapdragon 888. Like, it performs great, right? Combined with 8 gigs of memory, opening, closing apps, multitasking, it's not a problem for the S21. Even playing something like Genshin Impact on the highest settings at 60 FPS is no problem for this. And even with the, I would say, an average battery capacity for a smartphone in 2021, this regular S21 has a 4000 mAh battery, and even with that, I'm still able to average 6 hours of screen on time with a little over 20% by the end of the day. So for my usage, that would be a medium to heavy use with a combination of social media, YouTube, some gaming, and picture taking. But here's the thing, and I don't mean to hate on Samsung's Exynos chipsets, but for the majority of people who are looking to buy a smartphone, they would want a Snapdragon powering their smartphone, right? So I really wish Samsung would have just gone for the Snapdragon 888 for every one of their S21s, regardless of the region. So yeah. The under-display ultrasonic fingerprint scanner is surprisingly fast and accurate for the most part, as some reviewers might say otherwise. And for me, one really underrated thing about the S21 lineup are the dual stereo speakers. They're really good. I thought the dual stereo speakers on my Xiaomi Redmi Note 10 Pro was already good. This is just significantly better on the S21. Like, it's just overall better. It's louder, it's clearer. And actually, here's a speaker test, but I feel like I won't be able to do it justice by doing this. But still, here you go.
Speaker test.
And like I mentioned earlier, this doesn't have a 3.5mm headphone jack. So if you want that zero latency audio, especially if you're gonna be gaming on this, then you're gonna have to use a dongle on it. So yeah. And like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, the Samsung Galaxy S21 checks all the 5 pillars of a great smartphone. But there's actually an additional thing here that makes the $800 price tag of the Samsung Galaxy S21 a fair price, or maybe even a good value. Not a great value, but a good value, and that's DeX. Now, when Samsung DeX was first introduced, Samsung actually wanted your Samsung device to be like a laptop or desktop replacement. You know, something that you already bring with you anywhere you go, and if you want, you can just hook it up to a monitor, connect a keyboard and mouse, and you have a personal computer. Now, in its early stages, a lot of reviewers and people who were using DeX thought that it was kind of like a gimmick. There were only a few apps that you can use, and it had terrible compatibility for some Android apps that could be useful. But in the recent years, Samsung has improved it by a lot. Like, DeX is now a viable option. It's still not a laptop or desktop replacement by any means, but if you're just going to be doing office work and schoolwork on this, web browsing, watching YouTube videos, maybe even edit some pictures on the mobile version of Adobe Photoshop, and you can actually play some of your favorite Android games here on a bigger screen, so that's very nice. Although it's not perfect, okay? Like, there's still a lot more that Samsung can do to improve DeX to make it more of a complete experience. But again, if you're just going to be doing office work, school works on this, and at the same time you want a minimalist, legit, a single cable setup, especially if you have a Samsung smart monitor, and of course, just connect a wireless keyboard and mouse to this, and you now have a real minimalist setup. Although what you're seeing here is DeX wireless. Yes, you can now use DeX wirelessly, but of course, if you want a zero latency experience, then of course get the DeX cable. So in conclusion, the Samsung Galaxy S21 is a great smartphone, right? It checks all the 5 pillars of a great smartphone. Plus, with Samsung DeX, that $800 price tag is actually justified. Like, it's a fair price, actually a good value. Like, I can't believe I'm saying that $800 on a smartphone is a good value. But yeah, with everything that Samsung's offering with the Galaxy S21, it's an easy recommend for me, especially to the people who, again, want a minimalist setup to basically have a personal computer in their pocket. So yeah, of course, if you guys want to buy this, then I'll leave the links in the description and pinned comments of this video. So yeah, that's gonna do it for now. As always, stay safe mga kuya. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.